Looking back now, I should have trusted my gut sooner. But hindsight's always perfect, isn't it? My name is Lisa, and I need to tell you about the day my entire life changed. Not because my marriage ended, that was just the beginning. I need to tell you about the moment I realized everything I thought I knew was a complete lie, and what I did about it. I'm a senior database administrator, which I know doesn't sound like the setup to a revenge story. People usually expect something more dramatic. But that's actually the whole point of the story. My job, the one thing I was supposed to just do quietly in the background, ended up being the exact tool that exposed everything. Let me take you back to how this all started, because context matters here. I met Kevin at a tech conference in Denver back in 2020. It was one of those big industry conferences where thousands of people show up, and you spend most of your time in breakout sessions trying not to feel completely overwhelmed by how much you don't know. I was attending a panel about database infrastructure and cloud scaling. Kevin was on that panel. He was talking about architecture decisions, about how to structure cloud infrastructure for massive scale, about the trade-offs between different approaches. And honestly, he knew what he was talking about. He wasn't just spouting buzzwords or theoretical stuff that doesn't apply in the real world. He was talking about actual problems that actually matter when you're trying to scale a company. After his panel ended, I approached him. I know that sounds bold, but I was genuinely curious about something he'd said about database optimization. We grabbed coffee. Just coffee. And we talked for 3 hours. 3 hours about PostgreSQL versus MongoDB. About whether we should be using relational databases for certain use cases or whether NoSQL made more sense. About API design and microservices architecture. About the problems we were both trying to solve at our respective companies. I know that doesn't sound romantic. To most people, that probably sounds incredibly boring. But if you're someone like me, someone who spent years at work talking to people who didn't understand your job, couldn't follow technical discussions, got glazed over when you tried to explain something important, meeting someone who could actually have that conversation felt extraordinary. It felt like meeting someone who spoke my language. We exchanged contact information. He reached out a week later asking if I wanted to grab dinner sometime. I said yes. We dated for 3 years before getting married. 3 years of building something together. We moved in together after about 18 months. He'd come home stressed about CTO things, company politics, technical decisions, hiring challenges. I'd come home frustrated about performance issues or compliance audits or managing difficult database problems. We understood each other's work in a way that most people can't. When he proposed last spring, it felt like the natural next step. Of course, we were getting married. We were already building a life together. We already understood each other. We'd already made 1,000 small decisions about how we wanted to live. The marriage was just the formalization of something that already existed. I was happy. I genuinely was. Not in the dramatic, swept-off-my-feet way, but in a deep, solid way. I had a stable job at a mid-sized SaaS company in Austin. I was making around $95,000 a year, which felt comfortable. Not wealthy, but enough to know I could pay my bills, go out to dinner, take a vacation, save money. Kevin was the CTO at the same company, making significantly more, I think around $280,000 with stock options and various bonuses. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had a nice apartment in a good part of town. We talked seriously about buying a house in a couple of years. We talked about what that future would look like. Life was really, genuinely good. Here's where I need to be honest about something. I trusted Kevin's position more than I trusted Kevin the person. That was naive. A CTO is a title that carries real weight. That's an executive position. You don't get to that level and then throw everything away for something stupid. At least, that's what I told myself. That's what I believed. I was wrong about that. About 8 months before everything fell apart, so roughly a year into our marriage, Kevin started working late. A lot. I'm talking 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. He'd be at his desk in our apartment until midnight or later. Sometimes I'd come home at 9 p.m. to find him already deep in work mode, and he'd still be there when I fell asleep at 11:30. I asked about it. What's going on? That's a lot of late nights. CTO stress, he'd say. We're working on a major infrastructure project. It's complicated. Can't really talk about it. I signed a confidentiality agreement with the board. That made sense. He was the CTO. Infrastructure projects are legitimately complicated, and confidentiality agreements are standard in executive positions. I didn't think twice about it. Around that same time, maybe a month after the late nights became regular, he came home with a new phone. Not like he lost his old one or upgraded. He deliberately had a new phone, different model, different carrier, completely separate. He told me it was for a side consulting project with a startup. There's this company that wants some architecture advice, he explained. Small equity stake, nothing major, just something on the side. Keeps work separate from personal, though. That's why the separate phone. When you're advising another company, you don't want client stuff mixing with your main job stuff. That made sense too. Professional boundaries. Smart thinking, actually. I didn't question it. Looking back now, these weren't dramatic red flags. They were small things. Any one of them by itself was completely reasonable. But they were the beginning of a pattern. The late nights. The vague explanations about work he couldn't discuss. The second phone with a mysterious side project. The mysterious meetings that he'd leave the apartment for without much explanation. Red flags don't always look like red flags until you're looking at the whole picture. When you're only seeing one piece at a time, you rationalize it. You trust the person. You think he's been trustworthy before. He's a smart guy. There's probably a legitimate reason. And then by the time you see the whole pattern, you've already missed months of warnings. It was a Tuesday afternoon in mid-September. I was home, working from my apartment office. I did a lot of my work remotely. Database administration is one of those jobs where you can basically work from anywhere as long as you have a VPN connection and can access the company's systems. I was doing routine database monitoring. The kind of thing I did basically every single day as part of my job. Security compliance checks. We handled customer data, thousands of customers with their personal information, payment information, usage data. We had strict requirements, SOC 2 compliance, GDPR, all of it. Basically, my job was to make sure our databases were locked down and that only the right people were accessing them in the right ways at the right times. I was reviewing access logs, looking for any unusual activity, anything that stood out. It was boring work, honestly. Most of the time, everything looked normal. People accessed the databases when they were supposed to. Data was moved around for legitimate business reasons. Nothing weird. That's when I saw it. There were data transfers happening from our customer database at times when normal business operations definitely did not require pulling data. I'm talking 2 a.m., 3:15 a.m., 4:40 a.m., the middle of the night. Large transfers, too. Hundreds of gigabytes of data being moved somewhere. I remember my hand literally froze on my mouse. That was not normal. There was absolutely no reason for anyone to be exporting our entire customer database at 2 a.m. I immediately pulled the access logs to see who had initiated these transfers. Kevin's credentials. His admin account. Every single one. My stomach went absolutely cold. Like, genuinely cold. Like someone had turned off the heating system inside my body and I could feel the temperature drop physically. All those late nights. All that secrecy about work projects he couldn't discuss. The second phone. The mysterious side consulting gig. They suddenly made a different kind of sense. A terrible kind of sense. I sat at my desk for probably 30 seconds without moving. I was trying to process what I was looking at. Trying to find an alternative explanation. Trying to convince myself that there was something innocent here that I was misunderstanding. But data doesn't lie. Numbers don't lie. And the story these numbers were telling was crystal clear. My husband had been systematically exporting our company's customer database in the middle of the night using his admin credentials. I traced where these transfers were going. The IP addresses traced back to servers registered to Dataflow Solutions, a competitor company. Our direct competitor, actually. The company that was always trying to steal our market share. The company that would benefit directly from having access to our customer data, our pricing structures, our product roadmap. And I knew who worked there. Rachel. She was VP of Operations at Dataflow Solutions. I'd met her once at an industry conference about a year earlier. Sharp woman. Ambitious. Ambitious in the kind of way that suggests she'd be willing to play outside the rules to get what she wanted. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. People can be paranoid about data security, and I didn't want to be that person, the spouse who sees something and immediately assumes the worst. So I went deeper. Not in a snooping on my husband way. In a I'm literally doing my job as the company's senior database administrator, and something is very, very wrong way. 47 separate data export events. Over 8 months. Every single one initiated by Kevin's admin account. Every single one directed to Dataflow Solutions servers. Every single one happening at off hours when he definitely wouldn't be noticed. The pattern was too consistent to be anything other than deliberate. Then I found the cryptocurrency transactions. 3 payments totaling $47,000 sent to a cryptocurrency wallet registered to his personal email address. Bitcoin transfers. The kind of thing you use when you want to hide a financial trail. When you want to make sure there's no paper trail connecting the money to the transaction. The timing was perfect. Too perfect. The $15,000 payment came through on June 10th. I checked the data export logs. On June 10th at 2:47 a.m., Kevin's admin account had exported our entire code repository. Our core technology. The stuff that took our engineering team years to build. $16,000 payment on July 22nd. Check the logs. July 22nd, 2:15 a.m., full customer database export. 847 customer records, including names, emails, payment information, usage patterns. $16,000 payment on August 19th, 3:33 a.m., another massive export. Proprietary pricing data. Product roadmap information. Strategic plans that our company had spent thousands of dollars and countless hours developing. He was getting paid for this. My husband was being paid to steal our company's data and sell it to a competitor. I sat there at my desk for probably 30 minutes, just staring at the evidence on my screen, staring at the numbers, staring at the pattern. I wanted to find an explanation that made this something other than what it obviously was. But there wasn't one. The evidence was too solid, too clear, too damning. The decision, strategy over emotion. My first instinct was to call him. To confront him right then. To demand an explanation. To ask what the hell he was thinking. To give him a chance to explain. I literally started dialing his number. My hands were shaking. Then I stopped. I set the phone down. And in the next 30 seconds, everything shifted. Here's what I realized. If I called him, if I confronted him immediately without any official protection or documentation, he would know exactly what I'd discovered. He'd know exactly what I had access to. He'd know exactly what evidence I'd found. And he's technical. He's smart. He knows how systems work. He'd immediately understand what evidence he needed to destroy. He'd have time to delete logs. He'd have time to cover his tracks. He'd have time to move money. He'd have time to prepare a defense. But if I went through official channels first, if I reported this to the company's legal department or to the FBI before I said anything to him, then the evidence would be protected. Once an official investigation started, evidence preservation laws kick in. He couldn't touch anything. The servers would be seized. The evidence would be preserved. He'd lose the ability to cover his tracks. It was a strategic decision. The kind of decision you make when you stop thinking emotionally and start thinking clearly. I called a lawyer that night. I found a cybercrime attorney through a friend's recommendation. I didn't tell her everything right away. I asked her, hypothetically, if a database administrator discovered that a CTO was exporting customer data to an external IP address without authorization, what would be the right course of action? She gave me clear advice. Document everything. I worked until 2 a.m. that night documenting everything. Screenshots of every export log. Every Git repository access record. The IP traces showing where the data was going. The cryptocurrency transactions. Everything saved to a personal hard drive, encrypted, backed up. The next morning, I went to work like it was a normal day. I didn't tell Kevin anything. I didn't act different. I just went to my job. I did my work like everything was fine, and at 9 a.m., I sent an email to our HR director requesting an urgent, in-person meeting. By 11 a.m., I was sitting in a conference room with our VP of engineering, our company's general counsel, and a representative from HR. I laid out everything. Not as a wife. As a database administrator reporting a security breach. I showed them the access logs. I explained which files were exported, when they were exported, and where they were being sent. I walked them through the Git repository logs showing he'd cloned our entire codebase multiple times and moved it to external servers. I showed them the cryptocurrency payments. 47 data export events correlating perfectly with cryptocurrency payments received. I showed them the IP traces proving the data was going to Dataflow Solutions. The room was completely silent. "How confident are you about this?" the general counsel asked. 100%, I said. "This is my job. I know what I'm looking at. This is systematic data theft. This is industrial espionage." They made phone calls immediately. Within 2 hours, the company had contacted the FBI's cyber division. By that afternoon, federal agents were at our office. I walked them through everything again. I gave them all my documentation. They asked questions, really good questions. The kind that showed they understood both the technical complexity and the legal implications of what they were looking at. One of the agents pulled me aside afterward. "You did this by the book," he said. "Everything you documented, everything you did, it's all proper. It's all admissible. It's all usable in prosecution. You have no idea how many times we see people do this wrong. They snoop illegally. They circumvent security protocols. They do things that seem right in the moment, but that compromise the entire investigation later. The evidence gets thrown out in court. The perpetrator walks free on a technicality. You didn't do any of that. You did it right." I should have felt proud in that moment. I should have felt validated. Instead, I felt numb. By late afternoon, Kevin's system access was completely revoked. He literally could not log into any company systems anymore. His email was frozen. Within 2 hours, a message went out to everyone at the company. Kevin Chen is on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. All questions should be directed to HR. We'll share more information when we're able to. Nobody needed more information. By the end of the day, people were talking. By day 3, the entire Austin tech community was talking. By day 5, TechCrunch had picked up the story. CTO arrested in corporate espionage case. VentureBeat ran it. Tech executive charged with theft of trade secrets. His name was permanently attached to data theft and federal crimes. I went home early. I'd already booked a hotel room for myself, a nice one downtown, the kind of place you go when you need to think and you don't want to go home. My best friend Sarah came and picked me up. We didn't talk much on the drive. We just sat in the car and I let myself feel something for about 10 minutes. Anger. Betrayal. Disappointment. Loss. Just let it out. By the next morning, I was done. Kevin called me 12 times that night. I didn't answer any of them. He texted repeatedly. "Please, we need to talk. I'm hiring a criminal defense attorney. We can figure this out." I read the first message. I didn't read the rest. I blocked his number at 9 p.m. Day 2, his attorney, a criminal defense lawyer he apparently hired overnight, called my attorney. Attempted to negotiate. My attorney responded, "Cooperate with federal investigators or expect federal charges. There's no negotiation here." Day 3, he tried to show up at our apartment. I wasn't there. Sarah had picked me up and brought me to the hotel. He left a note on the door. I never read it. I didn't want to read it. By day 5, he was meeting with federal prosecutors about potential plea deals. His attorney was having conversations about criminal liability, federal sentencing guidelines, minimum mandatory prison time. The conversation shifted really quickly from maybe this goes away to what's the minimum amount of time he's going to spend in prison? His parents found out day 2. His sister saw the news articles online and called them. Family meeting happened. His mother cried. His father didn't speak to him for a week, then called him up to yell about the family's embarrassment. My family. I called my parents day 1 and told them everything. My father was angry on my behalf. My mother kept asking, "Did you have any idea? Did you know something was wrong?" I didn't. I genuinely didn't. Within 2 hours of that professional meeting at work, Kevin's system access was revoked. By end of business day 1, the company-wide message was sent. By day 3, rumors were spreading through the Austin tech community at light speed. By day 10, probably 200 people in the local tech scene knew the full story. He'd become toxic. His professional network evaporated. People he thought were friends weren't returning calls. Former colleagues he'd hired were distancing themselves quietly. No one wanted to be associated with him. Rachel, the VP of Operations at Dataflow Solutions, the woman he'd been working with, who'd been paying him for the stolen data, within 24 hours, the FBI was also investigating her company. Her company's infrastructure was seized. Emails were subpoenaed. She tried to blame Kevin immediately. He initiated contact. "I was fooled. I'm just a victim here too." It didn't work. The $47,000 in payments proved coordination. She was terminated from her job within a week and is now under federal investigation for receipt of stolen trade secrets and wire fraud. Here's where this story gets genuinely interesting from a pure consequences standpoint. Kevin's CTO salary was approximately $280,000 annually. That stopped immediately when they terminated him for cause. Within 1 week of termination, he had 0 salary income, 0 bonus potential. Health insurance terminated. 401k matching stopped. Stock options forfeited, roughly $200,000 value. All benefits eliminated. But his expenses didn't stop. His mortgage on the house he wasn't even living in anymore was about $3,500 a month. Property taxes about $800 a month. Insurance, utilities about $600 a month. Total fixed housing costs, roughly $4,900 a month. No income. Thousands in monthly obligations. I filed for divorce on day 5. Through my attorney, very efficiently, very professionally. He didn't even try to fight it. He had no leverage. He was facing federal charges. His attorney advised him to be cooperative with authorities and to minimize legal exposure. Fighting the divorce would have been pointless. We owned a house worth about $560,000 that we'd purchased 2 years earlier. In the divorce settlement, I retained the house. His equity in the house represented roughly the amount he'd contributed to the down payment and mortgage payments over time, was worth about $180,000. He got nothing. The settlement terms were basically, walk away with nothing, walk away clean. Done. We had about $89,000 in joint savings. I retained $50,000. He got $39,000, which immediately went to pay my attorney's fees for the divorce proceedings. He spent $12,000 of what remained on a criminal defense attorney retainer. Within a week, he was down to $27,000. The judge declined to award him alimony. The reasoning was clear: he destroyed his own career through his own criminal conduct. The court was not going to require me to support him. By month 3 after the investigation started, Kevin was working freelance database consulting for a tiny startup, making approximately $1,200 a month. His rent for a studio apartment was $1,200 a month. He was breaking even on housing with 0 left for food, utilities, legal bills, or anything else. The tech community knew him. He had a wide social circle. Maybe 40-50 people he'd consider friends or professional acquaintances from various tech meetups, conferences, happy hours, networking events. By the time the full story came out, about 35 to 40 of these people had completely distanced themselves. Once they learned the full story, data theft, payments, corporate espionage, it was unambiguous. He was clearly in the wrong. They supported me. Maybe 1 or 2 people sided with him. Usually guys who didn't know me well and had known Kevin longer. Even they were quiet about it. Another 10 or so people just disappeared. They didn't take sides. They just wanted nothing to do with the drama. They stopped calling. Stopped showing up to things. Pretended they didn't know what had happened. His LinkedIn profile became a mess. Former colleagues commenting, asking what had happened. Some friends quickly disconnecting. News articles being linked in the comments section. Articles about CTO arrested, corporate espionage, theft of trade secrets. By month 6, Kevin had accepted a plea deal with federal prosecutors, Guilty plea to wire fraud and data theft. Sentencing recommendations put him looking at around 16 months in a federal prison facility. His attorney was shopping for minimum security options. Good luck with that. Within 2 weeks of Kevin's termination, the VP of Engineering called me into his office. "We created a position for you," he said. Chief Database Security Officer. It didn't exist before, but we need someone we can trust to rebuild our security infrastructure after what happened. We need you to oversee all database security, implement new protocols, do a security audit of everything. I know it's a lot. I know it's probably not what you imagined you'd be doing. But I need someone I trust. That's you. New title. New responsibility. $145,000 a year. A $50,000 annual raise. Suddenly my reputation wasn't, she was married to a criminal. It was, she's the person who caught the criminal. She protected the company. She did the right thing under incredibly difficult circumstances. Within a month of that promotion, I started getting recruitment calls. Google wanted to know if I'd be interested in conversations. Microsoft reached out. AWS contacted me. Larger companies wanted to know if I'd consider Chief Information Security Officer roles. I kept the house. After the divorce was finalized, I renovated it. Not because I was trying to erase memories or anything dramatic like that. I just wanted to make it mine. Genuinely mine. I hired a contractor, updated the kitchen, changed the paint color in the master bedroom from the blue we'd chosen together to a color I actually liked. Bought new furniture. Redecorated. Made it reflect who I am, not who we were as a couple. I have $75,000 in savings now. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone I met at a rock climbing gym. I go climbing twice a week. I have a book club that meets monthly. I'm sleeping 8 hours a night. I feel genuinely good. And when I look back at what happened, I genuinely don't regret any of it. Not reporting Kevin, not the divorce, not the financial decisions, not any of it. Was it hard? Absolutely. Was it painful? Yeah, but it was right. It was necessary. You know what people don't understand about revenge? Real revenge isn't about scheming or planning or orchestrating elaborate takedowns. Real revenge is what you do for yourself. It's the ability to look at a situation and say, I'm not going to let this destroy me. I'm not going to let this person's choices derail my life. I'm going to make sure this person answers for what they did, and I'm going to use that as my launching point to build something better. I didn't scheme against Kevin. I didn't manipulate anything. I didn't do anything illegal or even unethical. I did my job. I documented what I found. I reported it through proper channels to the appropriate people. I let the system work. Some people call that petty. I call that thorough. Some people ask if I still love him. If I ever did. Honestly, I loved who I thought he was. The person at that conference who understood system design. The person who could talk databases with me for 3 hours and make it feel like a date. The person I built a life with. That person was an illusion. An incredibly convincing one, but an illusion nonetheless. The real Kevin was someone willing to throw away a $280,000 a year job. Someone willing to throw away a marriage. Someone willing to throw away his entire professional reputation. For $47,000 spread across 6 months. That's not even meaningful money at a CTO level. That's not about financial desperation or anything understandable. That's just greed and poor judgment. And stupid people get caught. They always do. Here's what I realized about this entire situation. The best revenge isn't something you construct. The best revenge is something you allow the system to construct for you. All I did was make sure the truth was documented. All I did was make sure the evidence was solid. All I did was deliver that evidence to the right people through the right channels. Everything that happened after that was just consequences. Natural, legal, inevitable consequences. Federal laws exist for a reason. Corporate fraud laws exist. Data theft laws exist. Wire fraud statutes exist. They exist because society decided that certain actions have consequences. I didn't decide those consequences. The federal government decided them. The courts decided them. The justice system decided them. All I did was make sure the system worked. Do I regret it? Not even a little.